In the vastness of the galaxy, Earth was known as the weakest. To the powerful alien species, Earth was nothing more than a small, insignificant planet with weak soldiers, outdated technology, and no experience in intergalactic warfare. The Galactic Council had seen many different species, beasts with claws sharp enough to tear through steel, machines built from pure energy, and warriors who could bend time itself. But Earth, it was laughed at. One day, Earth sent its first envoy to the Galactic Council. The humans were hopeful, their planet now part of a larger galactic alliance. But as they entered the meeting room, they were met with sneers and mockery. Their uniforms were clunky, their weapons looked like toys, and their soldiers were no bigger than children. The aliens couldn't help but laugh. "They have no chance," said an alien commander from the planet Fixer, his long, thin body almost shaking with laughter. "A planet of primitives, and they think they can join the galaxy's elite forces. They can barely defend themselves from their own kind. How will they survive the galactic war?" Another alien chimed in. The humans stood silently. They had heard it all before. Earth was the underdog, the weak one, but they had a secret that no alien species could understand. And so, the first battle came. It wasn't a big one. Earth's soldiers were sent to protect a small outpost on a distant planet. The Vixorians had launched an attack on the outpost, thinking it would be an easy victory. They sent 200 of their best soldiers to crush the tiny human squad that guarded the base. The humans, only 20 strong, seemed like nothing more than a target. The Vixorians laughed as they landed, expecting to destroy the outpost in minutes. But what they didn't know was that the humans weren't afraid. They had faced worse on Earth. They had fought wars against each other for centuries, endured famine, and survived disasters. They were a species built on survival, built on determination. And most of all, they never gave up. The battle started. The Vixorians charged, confident in their victory. But the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they set up traps, simple but effective. They used the environment to their advantage. Earth soldiers hid in shadows, using guerrilla tactics that no one expected. They didn't fight like trained warriors. They fought like survivors, like people who knew the cost of losing. At first, the Vixorians mocked them, thinking it was all part of a desperate defense. But as the minutes passed, the battle grew stranger. The humans were everywhere. No matter how many of their soldiers fell, new ones seemed to appear, popping up from unexpected places, always one step ahead. It wasn't skill that was saving them. It was their determination. They kept fighting, pushing the Vixorians back, even when the odds were impossible. After an hour, the Vixorians began to lose their confidence. They couldn't understand how these humans were still fighting. Finally, after 3 long hours of battle, the Vixorians realized they were losing. Their superior technology, their advanced weapons, couldn't beat these tiny, unimportant creatures. The humans had won. The Vixorian commander, a cold and calculating alien named Kreth, stared at the battlefield in disbelief. His troops were retreating. His soldiers, the galaxy's finest warriors, were fleeing from the humans. Kreth could barely understand it. He had watched the entire battle from the safety of his command ship. The humans didn't have the best weapons, they didn't have the best armor, and they didn't even have the most advanced tactics. But they had something else, something strange. They're like cockroaches, Kreth muttered under his breath. No matter how much we crush them, they keep coming back. Back at the Galactic Council, the Vixorians reported the unexpected loss. The other species laughed at first, thinking it was a fluke, but Kreth was serious. He sent in reports, trying to understand what had happened. These humans, they don't stop. Even when they're outnumbered, even when they're dying, they keep fighting. An alien scientist from the planet Zorex suggested sending a team to Earth. "We need to study them," he said. "There's something about these creatures that doesn't make sense. They're different. And so, the scientists from several planets began studying Earth's history. They looked at Earth's wars, at their battles, their struggles. They dug through old records of human history, trying to find the answer. And they found something strange. Earth's soldiers were not the strongest, the smartest, or the most advanced, but they were the most persistent. One scientist, studying Earth's ancient wars, looked at a battle from centuries ago, an old war between two human nations. He watched a soldier, bloodied and broken, stand up after being knocked down. That soldier kept fighting, even when his legs were shattered and his breath was ragged. "What is this?" the scientist whispered. "Why won't they stop?" The answer wasn't in their weapons. It wasn't in their armor. It wasn't in their technology. The answer was in their hearts. Humans didn't fight to win. They'd fought because they had to. They fought because they could never stop, even in the face of death. The galaxy had underestimated Earth. They thought humans were weak, with their toy-like armor and outdated weapons, but they hadn't seen the true strength of Earth. They hadn't seen the human will to survive. And as the aliens continued their studies, one thing became clear. The galaxy had made a mistake. The humans were not the weakest. They were, in fact, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts. After the unexpected victory on the outpost, Earth's name spread across the galaxy, but not in the way the humans had hoped. The galactic species couldn't believe it. Earth's toy soldiers had defeated the mighty Vixorians. They had somehow survived, and even worse, they had won. The Vixorians were furious, their pride shattered. They quickly regrouped, determined to erase the humiliation. "This time, we will crush them," Kreth, their commander, said coldly. The Vixorians weren't going to let a small human victory stand. They needed to teach Earth's soldiers a lesson, one they would never forget. But the next battle would not go the way the Vixorians expected. The Galactic Council decided that Earth's troops would take on a more difficult task. A small strategic mining planet was under attack by the Vixorians, and Earth was chosen to defend it. The Vixorians had sent hundreds of soldiers to claim the planet for its rich resources. But this time, the humans were outnumbered even more. Earth sent a squad of only 20 soldiers to hold the planet. It seemed like a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. The Vixorians laughed at the foolishness of it all. 20 humans against hundreds of us. They might as well surrender now, one alien general said. The humans, however, didn't back down. They were led by a seasoned captain named Robert Hayes, a man who had seen more battles than most could imagine. "We hold this line," he told his squad. "We fight to the last man. We won't let them take this planet." As the Vixorian army landed, they were met with little resistance at first. The human soldiers were spread out, blending in with the environment, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Vixorians, confident in their victory, moved toward the main mining facility, sure that the small group of humans couldn't stop them. But Robert Hayes had a different plan. The human soldiers were not waiting for the aliens to come to them. They were moving, setting traps, and launching surprise attacks. They used the planet's rocky terrain to their advantage. Vixorian soldiers, expecting an easy fight, were confused when they were hit from every direction. They couldn't find the humans. They couldn't predict their movements. It was as if the humans were ghosts, striking without warning, vanishing before the Vixorians could react. The battle raged on for hours. The Vixorians had the firepower, the numbers, and the technology. But the humans had something else, their will. They fought harder than anyone could imagine. Every time they were hit, they came back. Every time a soldier fell, another rose. They never stopped, even when they had no hope of winning. And then something unexpected happened. After 3 hours of fighting, the Vixorians started to retreat. They were baffled. They had the numbers. They had the superior weapons. They had everything they needed to win. But the humans just kept coming. Even when it seemed impossible, even when their backs were against the wall, the humans refused to give up. Kreth, the Victorian commander, watched through his ship's control room. His eyes narrowed as he saw the human soldiers fighting with a fury that seemed unnatural. "Why won't they stop?" he muttered. "Why aren't they running?" His officers were confused too. "They're just humans. How are they still standing?" Kreth couldn't understand it. The humans were like an unstoppable force, a storm that wouldn't be tamed. They were losing soldiers, yes, but they kept fighting. They kept winning small victories. And in the end, that was enough. After 5 hours, the Victorians finally broke. Their forces were scattered. The human squad, though reduced in numbers, had succeeded. The mining planet had been saved. The Victorians were humiliated again. They had underestimated Earth's soldiers once more. But this time, they couldn't just laugh it off. "How did this happen?" Kreth demanded. "How could they have won? We were supposed to wipe them out." Back at the Galactic Council, there was an uneasy silence. The other species watched the report from the Victorians in disbelief. Earth's soldiers had fought against impossible odds, and they had won. They shouldn't have been able to do that, a member of the Zorak species said, shaking his head. "Their weapons are primitive. Their soldiers are nothing special. They shouldn't have survived." But they had, and the galaxy was starting to wonder why. A scientist from the planet Ixura spoke up. "We need to understand what's happening with these humans. We've seen this behavior before, in another species, long ago." His words sent a chill down the spines of the other council members. "What species?" Kreth asked, his voice low. "The Shellcore," the scientist replied. "A species that fought on instinct. They had no advanced technology, but they survived because they never gave up. They were relentless." The council fell silent. Could the humans be like the Shellcore? Was it possible that Earth's soldiers didn't just fight for victory? They fought for survival, for something far deeper than anyone could understand. As the council members discussed the humans, Kreth made one last report. He sent word to the Victorian fleet. "We have to stop underestimating them. The humans are more dangerous than we thought." The galaxy had underestimated Earth once. But now, they were starting to realize something terrible. Earth's soldiers weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting for their very survival. And that made them the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had proven themselves once again. Their victory on the mining planets and shockwaves through the galaxy. No one could deny it anymore. Earth's soldiers were not to be underestimated. But what no one knew was that something far more disturbing was happening behind the scenes, something that would change everything the galaxy thought they knew about humans. The Victorians were not just embarrassed. They were angry. They had lost again, and this time, their pride couldn't handle it. Kreth, the Victorian commander, ordered a new plan. This time, they would send their best troops, their most dangerous warriors. The humans would not survive this time. The target was simple: Earth's capital. The Victorians had long watched Earth from the shadows. They knew that Earth's true strength came from their will to survive. But Kreth believed that if they could crush the humans' hope, they could break their spirit. Without hope, there would be no fight. But Earth was not going to give up. The humans weren't afraid. Even as the Victorians landed near their cities, even as they brought their deadliest weapons, Earth's soldiers prepared to defend their home, as they had always done. One soldier in particular would change the course of this battle forever. His name was Diaz. He was a quiet man, not the strongest or the most skilled, but he had something that set him apart: his heart. Diaz had been through wars, battles, and more. But there was one thing he always believed: he would never leave his brothers behind. As the Victorian forces advanced, Diaz and his squad were sent to hold a key position near the capital. The Victorians came at them with everything they had: blasters, bombs, and thousands of soldiers. But Diaz and his squad fought like demons. They fought with everything they had, refusing to surrender, refusing to give up. The battle was fierce. Diaz's squad was outnumbered 10-1. It was clear they wouldn't last long. One by one, his squad fell. Diaz himself was injured, his armor torn and burned. But he kept fighting. He kept moving, leading the charge. No one could believe it. How could he still stand? How could he still fight? Then it happened. As the Vixorian forces moved in to finish off the last remaining human soldiers, Diaz saw an opportunity. There was a Vixorian sniper perched on a high building, aimed directly at his team. Diaz knew that if the sniper fired, all would be lost. His comrades would be killed. There was no time. Without thinking, Diaz ran straight toward the sniper's position. Bullets hit him, his armor cracking under the pressure, but Diaz didn't stop. He kept running, his eyes locked on the sniper's position. He reached the building, climbing it with every last ounce of strength he had. And when he reached the top, he found the sniper. In his final moments, Diaz threw himself at the sniper, knocking him off the building just before the alien could fire. The sniper fell to the ground with a loud crash, his weapon lost. Diaz, however, was done. His body couldn't take it anymore. He collapsed, his mission complete. His squad managed to hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The Vixorians were pushed back, defeated again. The battle was over, but Diaz was dead. At the end of the fight, when the humans had won yet again, the Vixorians found Diaz's body. They stared at the lifeless form, their cold, calculating eyes studying him. He had saved them all, but at what cost? What happened next shocked the galaxy. The Vixorians' medical team, who had been trained to revive their own soldiers, noticed something strange. Diaz's body, though badly damaged, was still warm. His heart, though barely beating, still had life in it. The Vixorians couldn't believe it. This wasn't possible. A medical officer tried to revive him, but as they did, they noticed something strange. Diaz's hand twitched. His fingers curled. Was he alive? The officer stared in disbelief. No, one of the Vixorians said. He's dead. He must be. There's no way. But the evidence was there. Diaz's body was showing signs of life. His wounds, though severe, seemed to be healing on their own. How? Why? The Vixorians couldn't explain it. Kreth, watching from his command ship, ordered the team to stop. "Leave him," he said. "It's impossible. We will study the human's mind. There's something in them that defies all logic." But the questions only grew. How had Diaz survived so long after taking so much damage? How had his body reacted in a way that no Vixorian soldier could? Was it something in the human body, or something deeper? The humans, however, didn't know any of this. They only knew one thing. Diaz had died a hero. His sacrifice saved his comrades, his planet, and the galaxy from another alien invasion. Later, when the human commanders found out about Diaz's death, they didn't mourn in the way the Vixorians expected. They didn't break down in grief. Instead, they did what humans always did. They honored him, they remembered him, and they fought harder than ever. But the Vixorians were left with more questions than answers. What was it about these humans that made them different? Why did they keep coming back, even when it seemed impossible? The galaxy wasn't just watching Earth's soldiers anymore. It was studying them, and it was beginning to fear them. After the battle for Earth's capital, the entire galaxy was talking about the humans. Their relentless spirit had become the stuff of legends. But something even stranger was happening behind the scenes. The Vixorians, though humiliated again, weren't the only ones watching the humans. Other alien species, curious and wary, began to take notice. The Zorax, a highly intelligent species known for their advanced technology, were among the first to study Earth more closely. For years, they had been quietly observing the humans, taking notes on their behavior, their habits, and their history. They were puzzled by one thing. Why did humans never give up, even when all seemed lost? But the Zorax had another, darker reason for their interest. They had been watching Earth not just for its soldiers, but for a deeper, more troubling reason: the humans' potential to unlock something far greater than anyone could imagine. A secret weapon buried deep inside their DNA. On Zorak's home planet, an elite group of scientists had been working on something strange for years: the ability to harness the raw potential of a species' will to survive. They had observed the shell core before, but the humans were different. The shell core had been driven by a basic survival instinct, but the humans, they fought not just for survival, but for something more. They fought for each other, for their families, their homes, their futures. They fought for everything they held dear. It was this deeper connection, the Zorak scientists believed, that could be the key to unlocking something no species had ever seen before: true, unyielding power. The Zoraks began conducting experiments, analyzing Earth's soldiers. They began to uncover something shocking. Humans, when pushed to their limits, could achieve feats that defied all logic. It wasn't just their bodies that were strong. Their minds, their emotions, their spirits. They could all work together in ways no other species could. The Zoraks knew they had to act fast before someone else discovered the secret of the humans' power. Meanwhile, back on Earth, life had returned to a fragile peace. The victory over the Vixorians had brought the humans together. Soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike were united like never before. Everyone knew that another battle was coming, but they didn't know when or where. Earth's government had formed a new alliance of soldiers, part of a global defense network that would help them defend the planet against any future attacks. But deep within Earth's military command, something unexpected was happening. General Maria Torres, a brilliant strategist and the leader of Earth's defense forces, had been meeting with a small group of high-ranking officers. They had just received word from Earth's top scientists. Something was wrong. The Vixorians weren't just angry. They were planning something bigger, something far more dangerous. The Zoraks had been working in secret. Using their advanced technology, they had begun to manipulate the very energy that powered Earth's soldiers. Their plan was simple: control the source of Earth's strength, the thing that made humans so unique, and use it for their own gain. General Torres didn't trust the Zoraks. She had seen their kind before: calculating, cold, and manipulative. But she also knew one thing: Earth's soldiers couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. They needed to uncover the truth about what was happening. They needed to understand the enemy's plan before it was too late. A secret mission was formed. A small, elite team was sent to investigate a mysterious facility on one of Earth's moons, where the Zoraks were rumored to have been conducting experiments. The team, led by Captain Elias, had no idea what they would find, but they knew they had to stop whatever the Zoraks were planning. As Captain Elias and his team landed on the moon, the atmosphere was tense. Their mission was clear: uncover the truth, expose the threat, and return with the information they needed to protect Earth. But what they found was worse than they could have imagined. Inside the facility, they discovered strange devices, machines designed to tap into human minds, to manipulate the emotions, the will to survive. The Zoraks had discovered a way to amplify the power of the human spirit. They had found a way to make humans even stronger than they already were, but at a terrible cost. The Zoraks had been experimenting with human subjects, attempting to create a new breed of soldiers, ones who would never stop fighting. They had been using advanced technology to tap into the deepest parts of the human psyche, pushing soldiers to their breaking points, making them stronger, faster, and more deadly. But the side effects were horrifying. The humans who had been experimented on were barely recognizable. Their eyes were blank, their minds broken. They were shells of their former selves, their spirits crushed. They had been turned into weapons, machines of war with no will of their own. And the Zoraks had planned to use these soldiers in the coming galactic war. Captain Elias and his team barely escaped with their lives, but they had the information they needed. The Zoraks were not just interested in controlling the human will, they had already begun to experiment with it. They had found a way to make humans more powerful than ever, but they had also found a way to destroy them in the process. When General Torres heard the news, her heart sank. The Zorax had gone too far. They had crossed a line that could not be undone. But there was hope. Earth's soldiers were still alive. Their will to survive, their hearts, had not been taken. They could still fight. The true strength of humanity was not just in their bodies, not in their weapons, but in their hearts. The Zorax had tried to turn the human spirit into a weapon, but they didn't understand it. They didn't understand that it couldn't be controlled. It couldn't be turned on or off. It couldn't be manipulated. It was the one thing the galaxy could never defeat. The discovery of the Zorax experiments sent shockwaves across Earth. General Torres knew that the Zorax had crossed a dangerous line. They had tried to manipulate the very thing that made humans strong, their spirit, their will to survive. But they hadn't just made Earth's soldiers more powerful. They had created a new kind of weapon, one that was far more dangerous than anything they had ever imagined. The news of the Zorax betrayal spread quickly. Earth's leadership knew they had no choice but to act fast. If they didn't stop the Zorax now, the galaxy would soon be overrun by soldiers who were no longer human. They would be nothing more than weapons, with no will of their own, no purpose other than to fight. But there was more at stake than just the future of Earth. The Zorax had a plan to spread their experiments throughout the galaxy. They wanted to create an army of mindless soldiers, each one more powerful than the last. If they succeeded, the galaxy would be under their control. The balance of power would shift forever. General Torres and her team had no choice but to go on the offensive. They had to stop the Zorax, and they had to do it now. But this mission would be unlike any other. It would not be a simple battle. It would be a fight for survival on a scale no one could have predicted. Torres called for a meeting with her top commanders. The Zorax have gone too far. We've been dealing with their manipulation, their lies for too long, she said. Now we fight back. We stop their experiments, and we destroy their ability to control the human spirit. Captain Elias, who had led the team to the Zorax facility, was standing beside her. He looked grim. General, we know what they've been doing to our soldiers. We've seen the consequences. These aren't just enemies anymore. These are people who've been turned into weapons. Torres nodded. Exactly. These soldiers are still human, but they've been taken from us. We can't allow that to happen again. The mission was set. Earth's finest soldiers would infiltrate the Zorax stronghold, destroy their research facilities, and put an end to the experiments before it was too late. But there was one problem. The Zorax had already anticipated Earth's move. As Earth's forces prepared for battle, the Zorax revealed their final plan. They had created a new deadly weapon, a super soldier who had been enhanced by their experiments. This soldier was stronger, faster, and more deadly than any human could ever be. He was a weapon of pure destruction, and the Zorax had unleashed him on Earth. This new super soldier, known only as Z-Alpha, was not like the humans. He had no emotions, no thoughts, no desires, only a singular, unrelenting mission: to destroy Earth and its soldiers. Z-Alpha's mind had been completely rewritten. He had no memory of his past, no connections to anyone. He was a weapon, and he would stop at nothing to eliminate his target. When Z-Alpha first appeared on the battlefield, no one knew what to expect. The Zorax had kept his existence a secret, hoping to catch Earth off guard. But as soon as he landed on the battlefield, it became clear. Z-Alpha was not just another soldier. He was something else entirely. Earth's soldiers tried to fight him, but it was useless. Z-Alpha was unstoppable. His strength and speed were unmatched. His attacks were precise, calculated, and devastating. No one could even get close to him. Every soldier who tried to take him down was either killed or left broken, unable to continue. General Torres watched from the command center, her face filled with dread. "We can't stop him," she said, her voice tight with worry. "He's too powerful." But Captain Elias wasn't so sure. He had seen how the Zoreks manipulated humans. He had seen how they turned soldiers into weapons. And he knew there was still one thing the Zoreks had missed. The one thing they could never control, the human heart. Elias wasn't afraid of Z-Alpha. He wasn't afraid of his power, his speed, or his strength. Elias knew that the true power of a soldier came not from their body, but from their will. And if there was one thing Elias understood, it was that a soldier with the heart to fight would always find a way to win. Elias called for a change in strategy. "We don't fight him head-on," he said. "We can't beat him with strength alone, but we can outsmart him." The new plan was risky, but it was their only chance. Elias and a small team of soldiers would infiltrate the Zorek command center, where they believed the source of Z-Alpha's power was hidden. If they could shut down the device that was controlling Z-Alpha, they might have a chance to defeat him. As Elias and his team moved into position, they were faced with unexpected obstacles. The Zoreks had set traps, hidden soldiers, and created a maze of defenses to protect their secret weapon. But Elias and his team pushed forward, using their wits and their training to navigate the dangerous territory. Finally, they reached the heart of the Zorek facility, where they found the device that was controlling Z-Alpha's mind. It was a massive, complex machine, pulsing with energy. Elias knew that this was the key to everything. If they could destroy the machine, Z-Alpha would be free. But just as Elias prepared to destroy the device, he heard a voice behind him. "You think you can stop him?" Z-Alpha's cold voice echoed through the room. "You cannot control me. I am beyond your reach." Elias turned around, facing the super soldier. But this time, he wasn't afraid. He knew what had to be done. "You may be powerful, Z-Alpha," Elias said, his voice steady. "But you are still human. And that's something you can never escape." With one final desperate move, Elias activated the device that would shut down Z-Alpha's control. The machine exploded in a burst of light and energy, sending shockwaves through the facility. Z-Alpha collapsed to the ground, his mind freed from the Zorek's control. As the dust settled, Elias and his team rushed to Z-Alpha's side. For the first time, they saw the man beneath the monster. He was no longer a weapon. He was just a soldier, one who had been forced to fight without a choice. Z-Alpha, now freed from his programming, looked at Elias with a mix of confusion and gratitude. I remember," he whispered. "I remember who I was." Elias nodded. "You're free now, and we'll help you." With Z-Alpha's freedom, Earth had won the battle. But the war was far from over. The Zoreks had been defeated, but their experiments had left deep scars on the galaxy. It was clear now that the true battle wasn't just against weapons or armies. It was against the forces that tried to break the spirit of humanity. And humanity, as they had proven time and again, would never be broken. The war was over. For now. As Earth's soldiers stood on the battlefield, the smoke and dust from the battle began to clear. The destruction was immense. Cities lay in ruins, and the once peaceful landscapes were scared by war. But amidst the chaos, something powerful was happening, something that could change the galaxy forever. Z-Alpha, now free from the Zorek's control, stood alongside Captain Elias and General Torres. He was no longer the mindless weapon he had been. He was human again, just like the soldiers who had fought for Earth's survival. His eyes, once cold and empty, now reflected the emotions of someone who had rediscovered who they were. "I never thought I would be free," Z-Alpha said, his voice soft but full of wonder. "All my life, I was a weapon. I was never given the chance to live." Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Now you have that chance. We're all free now." General Torres stepped forward, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We've won, but the fight isn't over. There are others out there, other forces that will want to take control of humanity. We need to prepare, but this time, we do it together." The soldiers around them nodded, their faces weary but determined. They had seen what humans were capable of when pushed to the limit. They had proven that no matter how strong the enemy, No matter how impossible the odds, they would never back down. They would never stop fighting. But this time, the fight was different. It wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting everything they held dear. The Earth, their homes, their families. And most of all, it was about the strength of the human spirit. As the final moments of the battle passed, a message was broadcast across the galaxy, a message from General Torres. To the galaxy, and to all who hear this, humans are not just survivors. We are more than that. We are warriors. We are united, and we will never fall. The message echoed through the stars, reaching distant planets and alien civilizations. The galaxy, once divided, now turned its gaze toward Earth. The humans had shown that they could overcome any challenge. They had faced impossible odds, battled against overwhelming forces, and emerged victorious. But what truly set them apart was something no enemy could ever take from them: their hearts. The battle for Earth had been won, but the war for the galaxy had just begun. The humans had proven that they could not only fight, but also win. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. As the camera zoomed out, the faces of Earth's soldiers stood strong. They had endured. They had fought. And together, they would shape the future of the galaxy. And somewhere, in the depths of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The light of humanity, their strength, their spirit, had begun to spread. It was only the beginning.